The massive object first appeared on Earth's deep space monitoring systems at 3:47 a.m. UTC. At first, the scientists at the Global Space Observatory thought it was a software glitch. Objects that large simply didn't move that fast. But as confirmation came in from observatories across the globe, the truth became impossible to ignore. Earth was about to have its first contact with an alien civilization. "Sir, we're detecting 7 more objects of similar size entering the solar system," reported Tom Miller, his eyes fixed on the glowing screens before him. The young technician's hands trembled as he adjusted his headset. They're moving at speeds we thought were impossible." General Robert West stood behind him, his weathered face illuminated by the blue glow of the monitors. In his 30 years of military service, he had prepared for many scenarios, but this wasn't one of them. "Get me the president," he ordered, his voice steady despite the chaos unfolding around him. Within hours, the world's major powers convened an emergency session of the United Nations Security Council. The atmosphere in the room was tense as military leaders and politicians argued about how to respond to the approaching vessels. Captain James Walker watched the debate from the back of the room. As the commander of humanity's first and only space warfare vessel, the ISS Defender, he knew he would be on the front lines of whatever came next. The Defender was a joint project between the world's space agencies, built in secret over the past decade. Today, it might be humanity's only hope. "The objects have entered Mars orbit," announced a voice over the intercom. The room fell silent. They're massive, sir. Each one is roughly the size of Manhattan." The Security Council's decision was unanimous. Earth would attempt peaceful first contact. Captain Walker was chosen to lead the mission, given his experience with the Defender and his background in diplomatic relations. As Walker prepared his crew for launch, the alien vessels made their first move. A transmission, broadcast on all frequencies, reached Earth. The message was simple and clear, translated by advanced AI systems in seconds. "We are the Dominion. Your world has been chosen for harvesting. Surrender within your solar cycle, and your species will be preserved as workers. Resist and face extinction." The transmission ended with a demonstration of power that shook humanity to its core. One of the alien vessels fired a beam of intense energy at Phobos, Mars' largest moon. The celestial body, which had orbited Mars for billions of years, shattered into countless pieces. "My God," whispered Walker's second-in-command, Lieutenant Mark Davis, as they watched the destruction from the Defender's bridge. "How are we supposed to fight that?" Walker gripped the command chair's armrests. "We fight smart," he said, his voice firm. "Humanity didn't climb to the top of the food chain on Earth by being the biggest or strongest. We did it by outthinking our opponents." The Defender's engines hummed to life as the crew prepared for launch. Earth's first line of defense was a converted space station, hardly a match for even one of the alien vessels. But it was all they had. As the ship broke free from Earth's atmosphere, Walker thought about everything at stake. Below them, nations that had been enemies for centuries were now working together, sharing military resources and scientific knowledge. The threat of extinction had accomplished what decades of diplomacy couldn't: true global unity. "All systems ready, Captain," reported Lieutenant Davis. "We're on course for the diplomatic coordinates they provided." Walker nodded, his eyes fixed on the massive alien ships visible through the viewport. They hung in space like dark mountains, blocking out the stars behind them. In less than 24 hours, humanity had gone from debating the possibility of alien life to facing an ultimatum from a vastly superior force. "Send the response we agreed on," Walker ordered. "Tell them Earth's representatives are on their way to discuss terms." But as the Defender approached the meeting point, Walker couldn't shake the feeling that humanity was about to discover something about itself, something that had been sleeping for a very long time. The world changed the moment the Dominion's message hit social media. Panic spread through cities like wildfire. People rushed to stores, emptying shelves of food and supplies. Streets became clogged with those trying to flee to rural areas. The human race had 72 hours to surrender or face extinction. Dr. Anna Thompson stared at her computer screen in the basement of the Military Research Center, her coffee long forgotten. As a neuroscientist studying human responses to extreme stress, she had never seen readings like these. "Look at this," she said to no one in particular, though her assistant Jack heard her. "These brain wave patterns, they're impossible." On her screen, data streamed in from hospitals worldwide. Thousands of people were reporting intense headaches, vivid dreams, and strange sensations. But what caught her attention wasn't the symptoms, it was what was happening in their brains. "It's like," she paused, searching for the right words, "like their brains are remembering how to do something they forgot long ago." Above ground, the world's militaries mobilized. Missiles were armed, jets scrambled, and submarines slipped silently into the depths. Not that any of it would matter against an enemy that could destroy a moon. In orbit, Captain Walker's diplomatic mission had failed spectacularly. The Dominion's representatives, tall, gray-skinned beings with multiple eyes, had made their position clear. Earth was their property, and humans were nothing more than resources to be harvested. "They're not even trying to negotiate," Walker reported back to Earth. "They say we're like cattle discussing terms with farmers." But something else was happening, something neither humanity nor the Dominion had expected. In military bases across the world, soldiers reported strange occurrences. Target practice scores improved dramatically. Reaction times doubled, then tripled. Some claimed they could sense danger before it happened. Dr. Thompson's lab became the center of this mystery. "The changes are spreading," she told General West during an emergency briefing. "It's like a chain reaction in our DNA." She pulled up a diagram showing human genetic code. "See these dormant sequences? They're activating. Every human on Earth has them. But they've been sleeping for, well, maybe thousands of years." The general frowned. "What are you saying, Doctor?" "I'm saying," she took a deep breath, "that humanity might be more than what we thought we were. And the threat of extinction is waking something up." In New York, a construction worker lifted a fallen beam that should have been impossible for 3 men to move, saving a trapped child. In Tokyo, a teenager solved complex mathematical equations without understanding how she knew the answers. In Lagos, a blind man reported seeing energy patterns around people. The Dominion noticed too. Their scans of Earth showed increasing anomalies in human biological readings. Their response was immediate and harsh. "Your species shows signs of prohibited genetic sequences." Their new message boomed across all channels. "The harvest timeline has been accelerated. You have 6 hours to surrender, or we begin planetary sterilization." In Dr. Thompson's lab, the readings went crazy. "It's like they just poured gasoline on a fire," she said, watching as human brain activity worldwide spiked to unprecedented levels. "Whatever's happening to us, their threat just made it worse, or better, depending on how you look at it." Captain Walker felt it too, up in the Defender. His reflexes were sharper, his thinking clearer. He could almost sense where his crew members were without looking at them. "Sir," his communications officer called out, voice shaking with excitement. "You need to see this." On the main screen, reports flooded in from Earth. People were changing, evolving, awakening. The Dominion had made a crucial mistake. They hadn't come to harvest a weak species. They had come to harvest a sleeping giant. And with every threat, every show of force, they were only making it stronger. As the 6-hour deadline approached, Dr. Thompson made a startling discovery in the human genome. These weren't random mutations or alien DNA. This was human DNA, encoded with a message from humanity's own past. The message was simple: in case of extinction-level threat, break glass. The glass was breaking. Dr. Thompson's discovery shook the scientific community to its core. Humanity wasn't just changing, it was returning to something it used to be. In her lab, surrounded by holographic displays of DNA structures, she explained her findings to the Emergency Council. "Our ancestors didn't evolve, she said, pointing to the glowing strands of DNA. They chose this. They locked away their power, buried it so deep in our genes that it would only wake up if we faced complete extinction. General West leaned forward. But why? Why would they give up their power? Before she could answer, alarms blared throughout the facility. On the main screen, they watched as the Dominion ships began to move. In orbit, Captain Walker and his crew felt the changes more strongly than most. Maybe it was their closeness to the enemy, or perhaps the constant stress of space combat. But their transformations were dramatic. "Captain," Lieutenant Davis called out, his eyes glowing with a faint blue light. I can feel the ship. Not just the controls. I can feel its engines, its systems. It's like it's part of me." Walker understood. He felt it too. The Defender systems were becoming extensions of their own bodies. Targeting computers responded to thoughts rather than commands. Engine output adjusted automatically to match their intentions. The Dominion launched their first attack exactly 6 hours after their ultimatum. They expected to face primitive weapons and basic space defenses. Instead, they met something else entirely. Walker watched as his weapons officer, who had never missed a target in simulations, now seemed to predict where enemy ships would be before they moved. The Defender danced through space like a living thing, avoiding enemy fire before it was even fired. "They're trying to get past us to Earth," Walker said, feeling the enemy's intentions almost like a physical sensation. "Don't let them through." On Earth, the changes accelerated. Athletes found themselves breaking world records hourly. Scientists made breakthroughs in minutes that should have taken years. Children began speaking languages they'd never learned. In her lab, Dr. Thompson finally understood why their ancestors had sealed away these abilities. On her screens, she watched as human brain activity evolved past what should have been possible. "We weren't ready," she whispered. "Our ancestors knew that with great power comes the risk of great destruction. They wanted us to learn wisdom before we regained our strength." The Dominion's first wave of attacks met with unexpected resistance. Human pilots flew with impossible skill. Ground-based weapons fired with perfect accuracy. And in every human mind, ancient knowledge began to surface. Walker felt it during the heat of battle. His hands moved across controls with certainty, knowing exactly what to do without being taught. Combat maneuvers no human had ever practiced came naturally to him and his crew. "Sir," his science officer reported, wonder in her voice. "The enemy ships, I can sense their weak points. It's like I can see through their hulls." The Defender scored its first major victory when it disabled a Dominion scout ship. The alien vessel, despite being 3 times their size, fell to precisely targeted shots that seemed to bypass their advanced shields completely. On the ground, Dr. Thompson made another breakthrough. "It's not just our bodies and minds that are changing," she told the council. "We're remembering. Genetic memory, passed down through countless generations, is becoming accessible." The proof came from everywhere. Engineers suddenly understood how to build technology that shouldn't have been possible. Doctors discovered they could heal with a touch. Soldiers found they could communicate without speaking. The Dominion's response was predictable. They launched a full-scale assault. But as their ships moved into attack position, they faced a species that was neither primitive nor unprepared. Humanity was remembering what it once was, and with each passing hour, with each attempted attack, they remembered more. The sleeping giant wasn't just awakening. It was standing up. The transformation of humanity reached a tipping point on the 4th day. What started as scattered incidents became a global phenomenon. Every human on Earth felt the change, like waking up from a long, deep sleep. In orbit, the crew of the Defender witnessed the first major battle between awakened humanity and the Dominion forces. What should have been a massacre became something very different. "Multiple ships approaching, Captain," Lieutenant Davis reported, his eyes now permanently glowing with that strange blue light. "They're bringing in their heavy weapons." Walker stood at his command station, feeling the ship's systems through his newly awakened senses. The Defender had changed too, responding to humanity's transformation. Panels that once needed physical contact now responded to thought. Weapons that once took minutes to charge now powered up instantly. "Let them come," Walker said, his voice calm. Around him, his crew moved with impossible coordination, their minds linked through abilities they were only beginning to understand. The Dominion's attack began with a wave of energy weapons that would have vaporized Earth's defenses just days ago. But humanity had changed. The Defender moved like lightning, avoiding shots that should have been impossible to dodge. More importantly, they could now see exactly how the alien weapons worked. "Their shield technology," Walker said, the knowledge flowing into his mind from somewhere deep in his genetic memory. "It's based on the same principles we once used, before we sealed our power away." On Earth, Dr. Thompson worked frantically to understand the scale of what was happening. Her lab had become a center for studying the awakening, with data flowing in from around the world. "It's spreading exponentially," she explained to General West. "The changes in one person trigger changes in others nearby. It's like our DNA is having a conversation with itself across the entire species." The general watched as her monitors showed the wave of awakening spreading across the globe. "Can they stop it?" he asked, meaning the Dominion. Thompson shook her head. "They already tried. Their initial attacks were meant to halt the process. Instead, they accelerated it. Fear of extinction is exactly what triggers these changes. In cities worldwide, humans discovered they could interface with technology in ways that should have been impossible. Cars responded to thought. Computers operated without touch. Ancient machines, buried deep beneath the Earth's surface, began to hum to life. The Dominion's second wave of attacks targeted these awakening abilities. They deployed weapons designed to disrupt neural patterns, expecting to shut down humanity's emerging powers. They were wrong. Walker felt the attack wash over his ship, felt it try to shut down his crew's enhanced abilities. Instead, something else happened. The attack triggered another layer of awakening. "Captain," his weapons officer called out, excitement in his voice. "I can see their network, their entire command and control system. It's visible to me now." Walker saw it too. The Dominion's military network spread out before his mind's eye like a glowing web. More importantly, he could see how to attack it. The Defender struck back, not with traditional weapons, but with bursts of pure mental energy. The attacks bypassed the aliens' physical shields completely, disrupting their ship's systems from the inside. On Earth, Dr. Thompson made her most startling discovery yet. In a sealed chamber deep beneath her lab, she found something that changed everything. A message, left by their ancestors, carved in crystals that responded to awakened human thoughts. "We were not born on Earth," she read, the ancient knowledge flowing into her mind. "We chose Earth. We chose to start over. We chose to evolve naturally, to learn wisdom before power. But we left ourselves a way back, in case we ever faced extinction." The message ended with a warning. "What you are experiencing now is only the beginning. The beast stirs, but it is not yet fully awake." As if to confirm these words, new abilities began to manifest across the planet. Humans found they could move objects with their minds. Some could see through walls. Others could heal with a touch. The Dominion's forces regrouped, preparing for their third wave of attacks. But they were no longer facing a primitive species. They were facing humanity's true form. And it was angry. For the first time since their arrival, the Dominion ships retreated beyond Mars' orbit. They hadn't expected this level of resistance. In their long history of harvesting worlds, they had never encountered a sleeping species that awoke so quickly. Captain Walker stood on the bridge of the Defender, but the ship was no longer alone. In the past 24 hours, humanity had built and launched 30 new vessels, created from recovered memories and powered by their awakened abilities. "Earth Defense Fleet in position, Captain," Lieutenant Davis reported. Around them, the new ships gleamed like silver arrows against the black of space. Each was crewed by humans whose powers had fully awakened, their minds linked in ways that made them deadlier than any traditional military force. "Begin the counterattack," Walker ordered. "Let's show them why they should have left us sleeping." The human fleet moved as one, a perfect demonstration of their recovered powers. Ships danced through space in formations that should have been impossible, their crews operating with a single shared purpose. On Earth, Dr. Thompson had made another breakthrough. "The Dominion isn't just afraid of us," she told the Emergency Council. "They've done this before. They've been hunting sleeping species across the galaxy, trying to harvest them before they can wake up." The evidence was clear in the genetic memories now flooding back to humanity. Other races had hidden their power too, seeding themselves on distant worlds to grow naturally. The Dominion had found and destroyed many of them before they could awaken. "But they've never faced one that woke up this fast," General West said, understanding dawning in his eyes. "They've never faced one that remembered everything in time to fight back." The battle above Mars proved his words true. The Dominion's forces found themselves facing technology they didn't understand, powers they couldn't counter. Human ships phased through their weapons fire, appeared inside their shield barriers, and struck with weapons that ignored their strongest defenses. Walker led the charge, the Defender now transformed into something far beyond its original design. His crew's minds worked in perfect harmony, their awakened powers turning the ship into an extension of their shared will. "They're trying to escape," his weapons officer reported. "Their flagship is preparing for a jump to faster-than-light speed." "Not this time," Walker said. With a thought, he connected with the commanders of the other Earth ships. Together, they executed a maneuver that their ancestors had perfected millennia ago. The human fleet split into 5 groups, each taking position around the Dominion forces. Energy beams connected the ships, forming a precise geometric pattern in space. Inside this pattern, the laws of physics began to change. The Dominion ships found themselves trapped. Their engines failed, their weapons went dark, and their shields collapsed. "This is how they've been hunting down our sleeping cousins," Walker broadcast to the fleet. "They strike before their victims can wake up, before they can remember who they really are. But they made a mistake with Earth. They gave us just enough time." From the captured Dominion ships came a transmission. The alien commander's voice shook with what might have been fear. "What are you? We've harvested 100 worlds and never seen power like this." Dr. Thompson, watching from Earth, knew the answer. The last of humanity's genetic memories had unlocked, revealing their true history. "We were the guardians," she whispered. "Before we chose to sleep, to evolve naturally, we were the ones who protected younger species from predators like the Dominion." The truth spread through the awakened human consciousness like lightning. They hadn't just been powerful, they had been protectors, guardians of life and evolution throughout the galaxy. Walker felt the weight of this knowledge, this responsibility, as he prepared to deliver Earth's response to the Dominion's surrender request. "You wanted to know what we are," he broadcast. "We are what you feared finding. We are what you've been trying to prevent. We are humanity awakened, and we remember everything you've done to our sleeping cousins across the stars." The beast wasn't just awake now. It was hunting. Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, in a structure that had been hidden for thousands of years, Dr. Thompson stood before a wall of shimmering crystals. The underwater facility had revealed itself only after humanity's awakening reached a certain level. "It's a library," she said into her communications device, her voice filled with wonder. "Our ancestors left us their entire history." The facility had been discovered by newly awakened humans who could sense energy patterns deep in the ocean. What looked like natural rock formations to sleeping humans now glowed with obvious technological purpose to their awakened minds. General West watched through a video feed as Thompson's team explored the vast underwater complex. "Can you read it?" he asked. "Yes," she replied, touching one of the crystals. "Our minds remember how. It's like remembering a language you spoke as a child." The crystals activated at her touch, filling the chamber with holographic images that told humanity's true story. They saw great cities among the stars, vast fleets of ships that protected developing worlds, and technology that bordered on magical. We weren't just powerful, Thompson said, watching the images flow. We were wise. We understood that power without wisdom leads to destruction. That's why we chose to sleep. The images showed how humanity had once been among the eldest races in the galaxy. They had watched younger species emerge, protected them, guided them. But they had also seen powerful races destroy themselves and others. "Look at this," one of her assistants called out. In another chamber, they found something remarkable. A massive spherical device, still humming with power after thousands of years. It's a planetary defense system, Thompson realized, the knowledge flowing into her mind from the genetic memories. The real one. Everything we've remembered so far has just been a fraction of our true capabilities. Above the Earth, Captain Walker and the fleet received this news with growing understanding. The powers they had awakened were just the beginning. Their ancestors had left them something far greater. "Captain," Lieutenant Davis called out, his eyes wide. "I'm detecting similar facilities activating all over the planet. There's one in the Sahara, another under the Antarctic ice, more in the mountains." Walker nodded. He could feel them too. Each facility contained a piece of humanity's legacy, waiting to be reclaimed. But more importantly, each held a piece of the great defense system their ancestors had built. In her underwater facility, Dr. Thompson found the central control room. The walls were covered in writings that told the final piece of humanity's story. "We were the guardians of evolution," she read aloud. "We saw how races that gained power too quickly often destroyed themselves and others. So we made a choice. We would hide our power, plant ourselves on a young Earth, and evolve naturally." The recording showed how humanity had engineered their own genetic code, building in the ability to reawaken if they ever faced extinction. They had hidden their technology, their knowledge, their power, all to ensure that when they did reawaken, they would have the wisdom to use it properly. "But the Dominion found us too early," West said, understanding dawning. "We were supposed to have more time to develop naturally." Thompson shook her head, smiling. "No, General. The timing is exactly right. Our ancestors knew that only a threat like the Dominion would awaken us fully. They knew we would need a real enemy to unite us, to force us to remember not just our power, but our purpose." The facility's systems were now fully active, connecting with others around the planet. Humanity's hidden legacy was waking up, just like humanity itself. In orbit, Walker felt the change as ancient defense satellites shed their rocky camouflage and revealed their true forms. What looked like asteroids and space debris transformed into advanced weapon platforms and shield generators. "Send word to the Dominion," he ordered. "Tell them they have 1 hour to surrender and face justice for their crimes against developing species. After that, they face humanity at its full strength." The beast wasn't just awake now. It had found its armor. The hour given to the Dominion passed. In that time, Earth had changed more than in the previous 1,000 years. Ancient defense systems, hidden beneath oceans, inside mountains, and disguised as natural formations across the planet, rose to their true forms. Captain Walker stood on the Defender's bridge, but the ship was now something far beyond its original design. Like all human technology, it had awakened to its true form, transforming into a vessel that matched humanity's restored power. "All planetary defense systems online," Lieutenant Davis reported. Around Earth, massive structures emerged from their long sleep. Shield generators large as cities hummed to life. Weapon platforms shed their rocky disguises and revealed gleaming surfaces that hadn't seen light in millennia. "The Dominion fleet is moving," Walker's weapons officer announced. "They're taking attack positions." Walker smiled. The Dominion hadn't fled when they had the chance. Like all bullies, they couldn't accept that their victim could fight back. Now they would learn why humanity's ancestors had been the guardians of the galaxy. "All ships, execute Pattern Omega," Walker commanded. The Earth fleet moved as one, their crews linked in perfect harmony through their awakened abilities. Ships flowed through space like water, moving in formations that defied normal physics. The Dominion struck first, unleashing every weapon in their arsenal. Energy beams capable of cracking planets lashed out at Earth. But they never reached their target. Earth's restored defense grid activated. Layers of shields, more advanced than anything the Dominion had ever encountered, absorbed their attacks like paper-absorbing rain. The planet itself seemed to glow with power. In her underwater facility, Dr. Thompson watched through the facility's sensors as humanity's full power was unleashed. "This is what we were," she whispered. "This is what we can be again." The counterattack began. Walker led the fleet in maneuvers that the Dominion's computers couldn't even process. Human ships phased through solid matter, appeared inside enemy shield barriers, and struck with weapons that ignored physical laws as the Dominion understood them. "They're still not surrendering," Davis reported, almost sadly. "They're calling for reinforcements." Walker nodded. "Then let's show them why our ancestors were feared and respected across the galaxy." At his command, the Earth fleet executed their final attack pattern. Drawing on power from the restored defense grid, they created a geometric pattern in space that their ancestors had perfected eons ago. Energy flowed between the ships, forming a perfect lattice of light. Inside this pattern, reality itself began to change. The Dominion fleet found their weapons useless, their engines dead, their mighty ships reduced to drifting metal. "This is your final warning," Walker broadcast. "Surrender and face justice for your crimes against developing species, or face extinction yourselves." The Dominion's response came in the form of a suicide attack. Their ships, powered by overloading cores, charged Earth's defenses. They never made it. Earth's defense grid activated its final protocol. Space itself seemed to fold around the Dominion fleet. When it unfolded, their ships were gone, transported to a containment facility near Jupiter that humanity's ancestors had built for just such a purpose. "All enemy ships secured," Davis reported. "No casualties on either side." That was important. Humanity had remembered not just its power, but its wisdom. They were protectors, not destroyers. Even their enemies would be treated with justice, not vengeance. In the days that followed, humanity began to fully embrace its awakened state. The genetic memories revealed not just their history, but their purpose: to protect developing species, to guide evolution, to ensure that power and wisdom grew together. "We have a lot of work to do," Dr. Thompson told the World Council. "There are other sleeping species out there, other worlds that need protection. Our ancestors left us a legacy not just of power, but of responsibility." Captain Walker, looking down at Earth from orbit, felt the truth of her words. Humanity had awakened, had remembered its true nature. They were no longer just another species trying to survive. They were the guardians of life itself, and the galaxy would never be the same.